Good morning, traders and investors around the world, and welcome to Monday's post-Super Bowl edition of premarketinfo.com, where we prepare you for the most important hour of the day, the first hour. Well, Dennis, we have a slight sell-off this morning in the S&Ps following a major rally on Friday.
Yeah, a little bit pulling back here. European banks a little bit weaker here this morning, Joel. It's kind of quiet on the earnings front, so just pulling back here a bit.
Okay, we actually opened a point and a half lower immediately out of the gate. 1237.50 has been the high so far today. If that holds as the high of the day, we have a downside target of 1321.50. That would put us real close near Friday's Globex low. The overnight low stands at 1330 and as the high of the day. We have an upside target of 1346 and a quarter. Right now, need to hold above this 1333 level, which was mid-range on the day, as well as Friday's intraday low. Moving on to the Big Ten, Dennis. ExxonMobil wasn't a big participant in the rally last week, or on Friday in particular. Got up to 85, closed right off that level at 84.92. Probably going to struggle at that 85 level, but I see major resistance up at that 85.5 level, the 4 and 5 day highs. And downside, probably should get a bounce off 84.05 this morning. First time down, that would be Friday's low.
I don't know, this 85 just seems like a magical number here, Joe. We can't get away from it on the downside or the upside. Friday's close being 85 right on the button. Stock is pulling back a bit here this morning, but I would gather there'd probably be some more sellers in that 85 area if it gets back up there. It just seems like the magical number on this one.
Okay, Apple continued to move up. Hit 460 on Friday. I mean, the only significance of that number is it's a whole number. Hit that number. Peeled back to close at 459.68. That's all-time high close for Apple. So those are your levels on the upside to look at. Coming back on the downside, I really have nothing to look at substantial until Friday's low at 455.56. Can't really look for a breakdown of that stock until perhaps we get a few closes under 455.
Looks like the whole number theory worked a little bit on Friday, Joel, with 460.00 right on the button being the high of the day. So I'd continue to use that whole number theory as we continue to make new highs. 460 being initial resistance. If we break through there, then I'd probably look up, in the 470, 465, 470 area. But 460, some initial resistance being the 52-week high, which was set on Friday.
Moving on to our next component, IBM was unable to make a new high for the week. It made the week high at 194.81, perilously close to that all-time high, 194.90. But in a rally on Friday, we only got up to 194.13 with a settle at 193.64. So IBM perhaps was not as strong on Friday as one would have imagined. I guess you got to look at major resistance now. This whole 194 level, 194 to 195 for your swing traders. Major resistance being at the all-time high, 194.90. Coming back on the downside, Friday's low is a mild stopping point for this, 192.54. But major support looming at the 191 level.
Yeah, Joe, I think you got the resistance right on the money on this. I think you swing traders out there, if you're willing to risk a buck on this, there's a low risk short in the 194s off that old 52-week high, 194.90. If it takes out 195 and starts making new all-time highs through the 195, I think you've got to cover. But if you're looking, to get on a lower risk short, maybe in the mid 194s or in the low 194s, if you want to risk that much, might not be a bad idea. But again, I just got to reiterate, above 195, all bets are off.
Okay, Chevron Corporation, a little over a buck range on Friday, pretty unusual for that stock. Making a high at 105.60 and settling at 105.5. Right up in that area now, so we're going to be, if we can open here, we'll be opening into resistance. Above that level, Dennis, I don't have any real good my hat on here because we have some gaps following some earnings announcements that we're trying to fill. So on the upside, I'd maybe back into the whole number theory here and look at 106 and 107, be mild stopping points. Coming back on the downside, there's really still 104.48, which was Friday's low, and you have a gap between Friday high, of course, from Friday's activity.
Yeah, this was the tricky one. We're kind of in the middle of the range. From a week and a half ago, we were above 108. We sold straight off that 102 area. Now we're trying to trade right in the middle at 105.5. If it's a pullback, you got this little uptrend going down the low 10. I'd say around 103, 103.50. So if you get a couple dollar pullback, you might find some support in there. Resistance, I would say, maybe you do use a little bit of the whole numbers here in theory at 106, but there really isn't that much up until 108. So tricky one to play because you're right in the middle of the range.
Okay, Microsoft, Dennis, goes over $30 here. 30.40 was the high, and 30.24 at the close. Currently trading down from that level, so let's use those two areas as resistance. I really don't have much for you above that 30.40 number. Coming back on the downside, 30.09. I hit that early in the session, Friday's low. Currently trading there right now, so Mr. Softy opening up into support. Below that, a little bit at the $30 level, probably psychological, but below 30, I'd be looking for Thursday's low at 29.71.
Joel, these tech stocks just continue to slowly march higher. Microsoft is no exception, making new 52-week high. 52-week high on Friday, again up at 30.40. I'd use that as my initial resistance. We get above there, then start using the whole number theory again. There's probably going to be some significant size selling up in the 31 area as you continue to march through these whole numbers. On the pullback, maybe you find a little bit of support at 30. It was a key critical number on the way up, but really, we've had such a move from 26 to 30.5 here in the last month. It's hard to say if you're going to find, if this thing started to sell off, it could pull back in a hurry because it's got to be a few people along the stock.
Okay, GE snuck its head on Friday, got up to 1910, kind of petered out there. Did settle over 19, Dennis, 1902. Has not been able to hold it in the pre-market. Mild support at Friday's low, 1892. Should get tested early in the session here. Things remain the same. Still this 1869 level, which was a weekly low, support moved up from that 1850 level. And also the major resistance at 1927. I guess you just got to be a range trader in this one if you want to participate in this one in the Big Ten.
Yeah, really, Joel. Channelingstocks.com here all the way. A buyer in the 1860s, 1870s, and a seller in the 1910s and the 1920s. So that's been the play for the last month and a half. It continues to be the play. I'd keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore.
Okay, Procter & Gamble really exhibited some weakness on Friday. We had discussed how the street was kind of ganging up on that. Actually made its weekly low on Friday at 62.56. Recovered, settled at 62.77. Keep an eye on this weekly low, 62.56. If that can't hold early in today's session, really don't see much, Dennis, until the mid 61s. 61.57 was a low November 28th, and 61 was a low on November 25th. Coming back on the upside, it's going to be hard to get through those whole numbers again. Mild resistance at 63.04, and you have Friday's high at 63.86.
Money just continues to move out of the defensive sectors as we continue to march higher. It's like a risk-on, risk-off trade. Procter & Gamble, your classic defensive stock, has had a terrible couple of months here just because money is moving out of this sector. So I think you're right, Joel. I think it continues to march down. I think it's where it wants to go. I think it wants to go and try those couple lows it set in November in the 61 area. Obviously, the stock moves slower, so getting there today probably isn't going to happen. But over the course of the next week or so, that eventually may be where it wants to go. So I would say that's your best, if you're looking to buy this stock, I think you get a good opportunity maybe eventually here in the next week or two in the 61s.
Okay, AT&T, another stock kind of playing with the whole numbers. Snuck over 30 on Friday, making a weekly high at 30.07. Peeling back to settle at 29.95. So Let's keep an eye on that entire area. The close up to Friday's high at 30.07 is major resistance. Coming back on the downside, Dennis, trading right on Friday's low. I have that as a minor number. Also, Thursday's low, 29.70, pretty close here. I think you got to really look at 29.58, which was a low on Wednesday, to find major support in AT&T.
Yeah, I agree, Joel. At 29.58, call it 29.50 area. That's a big number for this stock. So if we're to pull back, I think you do find some support in there. It's a little ways away, though, still 35 cents down from here. $30, just big psychological level, starting to see some size for them there, so wouldn't be surprised if $30, the 29.90s, get those high frequency guys that lean off those big numbers like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see resistance from settlement, which is 29.95, all the way up to 30. Obviously the high on Friday at 30.07, so that whole area should provide some pretty good resistance.
Okay, moving on to another defensive day, which has just been holding up remarkably well vis-a-vis the Procter and Gamble. One thing to note on this stock, since late November, we've been trading in a $2 range. The top of that range being 66.32 in late December, and then we also hit last week. And then the bottom of the range has been 64.34. Which we traded back on January 24th. Really, Dennis, this is just an ideal looking at consolidation. The question is how long can this consolidation last? 66, obviously, still the major number. Stuck its head above that just for a second on Friday. And then 65.13, believe it or not, has been the weekly low. So that's, a little over a buck range at J&J for entire last week. I just can't see that holding up, Dennis.
Well, I eventually think it's going to make a move one way or another, but right now, you're right, Joel, 66 number is the key number for this stock. Back here in late December, we cut through it, got up to that 66.32 area. Then we couldn't get over 66 for the next 3, 4, 5 tries. That eventually broke down under 65 and made those lows where you were talking about 64.30. We've come back up. We've done the exact same thing. We've went up and we've made a new. We broke through the 66, went up to that 66.32 area, right on the button. The next 2 sessions, we're just hopping on the 66 area again. So if you think deja vu is happening here, you got to be a seller at 66, thinking the stock's eventually maybe going to go down. Tesla's lows at 64.30.
Okay, moving on to our final component, Pfizer. After spending very little time under 21 last week, making a weekly low at 28, got a little pop in the market on Friday, got up to 21 and a quarter. So double top at that area, 21 and a quarter to 21.31. That'd be major resistance. Wouldn't be looking to buy that stock until it got above that level. Trading down from the close, which was right in that area as well. So major resistance there, 21.20, 21 and a quarter. Coming back, Friday's low, kind of a soft number there, 21.05. But the major support stands at the weekly low at 20.80. Not much driving Pfizer lately.
A very quiet day on Friday on this stock, Joel. A little inside day. If we get this 21.20 area, I'm starting to see some size form. 21.23, 21.26, just right in this 21 where it settled 21.20. So wouldn't be surprised if that gives a little bit of resistance above there, 21.5. And then if you're trading this on the downside, I still think the stock is gearing to break down. 20.80 is the low you got to watch. We break through there, then I'd talk about 20.50 and possibly even $20.
Okay, that's a wrap of the Big Ten. Kind of quiet here this morning. The S&P is only trading down 4 points. So we're going to take a quick break, post our market movers for you, and we'll be right back.